What?
Progressing, yeah.
Let me ask you a harder question.
Right.
Because we haven't asked you any harder questions to begin with. You're going to be in your 90s soon. If you were
hope to
point,
make it, yes.
if you were to point to younger people, there seems to be a failure to pass torches that I've noticed. And you don't seem to be the sort of a person I would imagine to have that problem. Who would you be pointing to?
You mean a human being, you mean?
Individuals.
Ooh, that's a tricky one.
You don't have to push anyone down, but who would you build up who's young and vital, who might be, you might say, look, if anyone's got the scent, this might be a person to look at.
I think I'm not going to take you up on that one.
I'll decline to push further.
Yes, it's just that it's not so obvious. I mean, I've certainly had people clearly good in inspirational ways and think of things I'd never thought of. But it's a bit hard. You see, I don't know enough people, I think. It's probably somebody I don't know, you see. Yes.
Do you worry that the glory that is the Oxford School of Geometry and Physics may not continue without?
I suppose I do worry a bit about that, yes. I mean, there was
it's an unbelievable nucleus of people.
You're absolutely right. It's very remarkable.
And I worry that the UK doesn't value itself enough. I think that you guys are so idiosyncratic and so weird and badly behaved. I don't know what to call it. But the UK has punched way above its weight by tolerating and encouraging personal idiosyncrasies.
I think that there is a point there. I wouldn't know how to generalize across countries because maybe, but I think you're right to some degree. There is tolerance of eccentricity, which is specifically a kind of tolerance which is specifically English or British. I should say British. I don't know. I'm nervous about saying things like that because you find somebody springs up somewhere else.
Yeah, somebody will hate you for it. But quite honestly, indeed. What are they going to do? Make you pay with your career? I don't think it's going to happen.
No, yeah, but I think what you say about the geometry developed in Oxford was pretty distinctive. Yes. But then the people moved out too. I mean, Michael went back to Cambridge.
But the Oxbridge system. I mean, I don't have to make it so peculiar to Oxford, but even if I think about like a Nigel Hitchin, or Mason, I guess has been in that system.
Yes, no, they're a group of very able people. Clearly, they're very
Candelas.
able people. No doubt about that, yes.
Yeah.
But you're asking me to a bigger thing than...
Let me just...
Yeah.
One final thing. Have you been to the courtyard of the Simon Center for Geometry and Physics at Stony Brook, which is tiled with Penrose tiles?
I've not been there. I've seen photographs of the tiling, yes.
May I recommend a pilgrimage? They have a wall there as well.
Yes.
The so-called iconic wall, which because Jim Simons made so much money, he was able to chisel
that's interesting.
Some of the world's most important equations and principles that you and I probably think of as being the hallmarks of being alive, just contact with these things. They're actually in a place that can be visited with a key. And I always think about, in a fantastic world, unlocking that wall and seeing whether it's in fact a gateway to something else.
Yeah, it's a long time since I've been there, and I haven't been there since the wall or the pavings.
I recommend it.
Yeah, no, I'd like to do that.
Let me ask you one final question to close out. We all worry when we've gotten this far along your road to reality, if you will, that we're not going to live to see the final chapter or completion, that this is a mystery like none other, that probably in some sense does have an explanation and a kind of end. Is that something that occupies you? I mean, I find you absolutely vital and sharp as a tack, but like I'm worried about this at age 54, that what if I don't get a chance to see the end of it? Is that something that animates you?
Well, there's a huge amount of chance involved in these things. So it's all a gamble. I think to see a real end to all this is too remote for that. But on the other hand, you see, we didn't really discuss where twistor theory is stuck or has stuck for 40 years and where I think it's got somewhat unstuck.
You think it will be the answer?
Well, I'm not sure how far it'll take us. You see, that's another question. But the main problem, as I saw it in twistor theory, it did sort of rather surprisingly, things which worked surprisingly well. And one of these is to construct solutions of the Einstein equations, or the Ricci-flat four-dimensional space-times, which were completely generic, provided they were anti-self-dual. Now, what that means is you've got a complex solution of Einstein's vacuum equations, which are left-handed in some sense. Now, why do we want complex solutions anyway? You want the real solutions. Well, you see, I thought at one point, well, one useful way of thinking about the complex ones is these are wave functions, because wave functions are naturally complex. So I thought, well, this is a wave function. But it's a nonlinear wave function, so I called it the nonlinear graviton. And it seemed to be a big step forward in understanding how quantum mechanics and gravity fit together. But it got stuck. It got stuck with what I call the googly problem. Now, you have to, if you're not a member of the former British Empire, you probably won't know what a googly is. It's a ball bowled in the game of cricket. You see, in cricket, unlike baseball, you like to spin the ball about its axis, the direction. It spins about the direction which it's moving, because it bounces. That's the key thing. So it bounces one way or the other. And to make it spin left-handed has a certain action with your hand. And there's a clever thing that people do who are really good at this, looks as though they're using the same action, but it's very cleverly done that the ball spins the other way. And you throw occasional one of these in, and it gets the batsman completely bamboozled. And that's called a googly. So using the same action that spins the ball left-handed, you spin it right-handed. So I use that term because it seems very apt. You have the twistor framework, which naturally gives you the left-handed graviton. Make it do the right-handed one. And I struggled and struggled and struggled and have all sorts of wild ideas for how to do this. And I came up with one which I was very proud of. But it needed a cosmological constant to be zero. And so I thought there is no cosmological constant. And then I had a discussion with Jerry Oestreicher, who was a very distinguished astrophysicist. And I was talking about the observations that there seemed to be exponential expansion of the universe, which seemed to indicate the presence of a positive cosmological constant. So I said, well, surely that's not really there, it's dust or something. And he looked at me and said, that's not the point. There are so many things in cosmology which work so much better if you put this cosmological constant in. So I had to retract my view. I threw out my construction, but it took me many years to see when you have a cosmological constant, you can do something that didn't work without it. And this enables you to have a construction which I think solves this googly problem. The trouble is, from my point of view, it translates it into algebra rather than geometry, although you can get back to geometry by thinking of it as a connection on the bundle, so that is a geometrical thing. It is a connection. And then you talk about this algebra, and then instead of patching spaces together to make a curved manifold, you patch the algebras together. Then they have to be non-commutative, a point that made clear to me by Michael Atiyah at one point. And this is the proposal. You just construct these algebras, and they are connections on bundles, and this enables you, at least in principle, to find a generic solution of the Einstein vacuum equations with cosmological constant. When I say find, it's...
So you mean what would be called an Einstein manifold. The Ricci scalar is constant and non-zero.
Constant and non-zero, that's right. And that's right, exactly what people call an Einstein space. But this is Lorentzian and not
understood
positive definite. But it's not a construction event that you sort of write this for me down. It's you construct this algebra, and then you look for subalgebras in the algebra, and that's not the thing I'm good at doing. So, but still, it needs to be worked out.
Sounds like you need a collaborator.
Oh, absolutely. But I got distracted by cosmology and other things, and
stay away from that consciousness stuff. It'll suck all your time.
Well, that is a problem, actually.
Yeah.
But you see, other people are doing that. I'm not really doing that. They get me to give lectures on it. And I give the same old lecture, which I've given many.
Well, I have to say that if you stick with what you've done in physics and keep trying to push that ball forward, I can't imagine a better use of your time. You are invited anytime you want to come back and return to this program. This has been an extremely heavy load for our listeners.
Sorry about that.
No,
Yes.
we don't apologize.
Yeah.
We don't apologize for that.
Okay.
We have to start doing something different because people are hungry to know, what does it actually sound like to hear people talking about where things are, rather than some spoon-fed, prettified version that's like pre-chewed as if it were baby food. I don't think they want that anymore.
No, I quite agree. And I think even if you don't understand all the things, that to get some feeling for some of the things people are trying to do is really important. As important as the details, or perhaps more.
But part of it is just respecting our listeners. They know that we don't know how to get this to them in exactly the right way. And so I think we have the best listenership of any program out there because they've been habituated to recognize that not every program and not every sentence is going to make sense. So, Roger, thank you for coming through. We'll come back anytime and would love to continue the conversation about twisters or anything else you'd like to talk about.
No, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.